We're so concerned about how well the movie does in terms of how many people see it. We don't think about how much money it's going to make. We had an opportunity with the movie for it to open Sundance. And all they had to do was get ready by a certain time. And they didn't. And there was nothing I could do about it because I was just an actor. It's so important to not hustle from desperation. If you're going to get into a deal you can't say no to, you're not in a deal. You're in a slave contract. The theme of my life is pretty simple. Don't just understand your job, understand your industry. We'll unpack that as we go on, what that means. But in the meantime, just so you know who I am and where I'm from, Thabo Rametsi, I was born in Mlazigwati in KZN. I'm a combination of a lot of experiences of the South African journey. My dad is Jewish. We're from a very distinct tribe. We're not Venda or Bedi. We're none of those things. I'm like Julius Malema, Kimoshabi. It's a very specific tribe. They took the Ark of the Covenant down from Jerusalem, a part of the original 12 tribes. We traveled down here through Ethiopia. We built the Great Zimbabwe. Mapungubwe was built by us. So the former empire of Mutapa, we have lineage from that. So those are my people. That's who I am. So I'm not Bedi, I'm not Venda, to Mushabi. You know, that's an important thing because, yes, we have 11 official languages, but we have like 200 languages spoken in this country. We recognize these tribes, you know, the brand name ones, you know those ones. But there are so many other different tribes. And that colorfulness of that in our country has really defined me. But let's get to me becoming an actor. And this story I'm going to tell you is going to be the story that permeates throughout everything I do as a filmmaker, as a business person. This is me, if you want to understand me. I was in a dark depression, like a really dark depression. Then my friend calls me. Linda says, hey, there's this show called Class Act. You must go do it. So if you don't know, Class Act is basically like idols for acting. I go there. I've never done an acting lesson in my life. I've never acted. Before you get to the TV auditions, you go underneath this parking lot, right? And there's little tents, and there's thousands of you. In each tent is like a judge, and the judges are acting teachers and etc. So you go in, you say your thing. If they don't like you, you leave quickly. You go in, you leave. They don't have time. They don't even, if you start in 2 seconds, gone. So I go in, I see this lady. She looks like a typical acting teacher. Like, I've never seen one, but now I know she's the standard. And I do my monologue, and I'm like, that lady says to me, who the hell do you think you are? That was horrible. You scream in my tent. You don't have any attention to this. And she's mentioning things I don't understand. There was no point to your piece. Where's the emotional? She's just reading. You're useless. That was disgusting. That was pathetic. I don't know what you're doing. Do it again. So I'm like, okay. I heard everything she said, all the bad stuff, everything. And so I do it again, removing the things she had mentioned. She's like, oh my God. Horrible, 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 horrible. This was this was that, this was that, this was that, this was that, this was that. Like, oh my God, you're just horrible. Do it again. I did it again 12 times. I get called and I'm in the top 10 the next day. Yeah. So I tell you this story for one critical component about me. I look back now at that moment as a defining factor. We spend a lot of time hearing the negativity, all right, allowing that to stop us from doing something. I didn't hear negativity. I just heard her giving me notes. When she was busy telling me that I was bad at this or whatever, all I heard is like, oh, you need to change this, or you need to change that, or you need to adjust this and doing that. I filtered through the noise of feeling bad about myself or sorry about myself. I don't take anything personally. And I think maybe they found me in a place where I was cold enough not to. Sometimes you're going to learn from people who don't like you. Sometimes you're going to learn from people who don't respect you. But you're going to learn. And that's all that actually matters. Class Act, I was in the bottom 3 every time. I did not do well. I was told I was bad. Social media was starting at that point. This one lady, without fail, after every episode, kept telling me I need to kill myself because of how bad I was. I get on the show, the judges tell me I'm horrible every day. At the end, when I get kicked off, all the judges like, maybe acting is not for you. I remember them saying that to me, both of them. And I was like, okay, I'll do it again. And so I left, and then all the guys in the Class Act team, Munin, who's since passed, gave them all, paid for their acting lessons. She signed a few of them, even the guys who were behind me, even the guys who came out before me. She gave them and not me. So I heard the guys talking about going to Miss Dorothy and Gold. I heard them like they're training. I'm like, which one is this one? Which one is this Dorothy one? I also want this one. But I now got nothing. And so I was like, okay, it's fine. I'll find this Dorothy lady myself and I'll pay for my own lessons. I'll find a way. And I did that. And if I had money, I'd be able to take a taxi to Auckland Park. If I didn't, I'd walk from here at North all the way to Westine. Yeah, and I'd learn with them. So I was part of the guys now anyway. And then I begged Terry Peto and Kenneth Ngosi to like, hey, get this woman to sign me. And they pressured her. She did. Big mistake. Now I look back on it because I can see she never really believed in me. So even when I was acting with her agency, she never really pushed me that much. From there, I just learned. I went to YouTube. I took books. No one was going to give me a free ride. No one was going to hold my hand. And I could take the time to be jealous of my compatriots. I could have wasted the energy to say, but why, what about me? Why come? And I just like, no, this is what they're giving these guys to get better. So I must get this thing as well. Even if I'm not getting it from the plug, I must be the plug, you know? I would go on to have a very hard career. I twang a lot. I had a baby face. There was a lot of things that I shouldn't be able to do it. The caliber of actors was so much better, you know. And even with getting a movie called Kalushi, it's very similar. It's like, they're like, no, not this guy. No, not this guy. Nobody wanted me to read it, and I just forced. What I'm saying to you is, I'm defined by the no's. My career is built and defined by incredible failure. I have known failure. Like, that's my standard operating procedure, is failing. And then here and there is things people consider success. And I say things people consider success because I'm still failing. I'm just trying to fail forward. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm defined by the fact that people tell me I can't do something, it turns me on. Now. Then I think it was piquing me. So when someone tells me, no, that's not possible, you can't do something like that, I'm like, oh, why does he think it can't be done? I'm like, I'm dumb enough to try. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm failing anyway. I might as well just fail trying to do this thing, you know? And failing freed me. That lady who used to tell me to kill myself freed me from the audience completely. I don't watch my own movies. I don't read tweets. I don't read anything because I know what it looks like when they don't like you. And as much as they like you, as much as they won't like you. If you're going to take the good news, you must take the bad news with it as well. So if they're saying you're amazing, you must take the amazing, but you must also, when they tell you you're horrible, you must take it with the same energy. I don't. I genuinely, and look me in the eye, do not care what people think about me. I don't care what they think about my work. I don't use them as the metric of why I do my work. The metric of why I do my work is if I'm enjoying doing it. Because I was alone walking from Epak Station to Westine with my thoughts in my mind. I was the only audience member I needed to please. No one was there taking me there. No one paid for me to go to these classes. I don't owe these audiences anything. This is my journey. You know, so that was a key factor for me. As I got into acting and I got something as you define as success, I did this movie, Kalushi, did well. Well, it didn't do well at the time, but it was this big deal. Everyone was parading it. At the time, it was not just gone on to become a really good critical success and financial success. I remember we had an opportunity with the movie for it to open Sundance. Now, for you guys to understand, Sundance is a big film festival. And it's got all the big stars, you name it, the biggest stars, the biggest directors. So if this movie shows on Sundance, my career is like, even if like it doesn't do well, like the fact that it's opening Sundance, an agent will like take me on. And all they had to do was get ready by a certain time. And they didn't. And there was nothing I could do about it because I was just an actor. And that's the moment that hit me. It's not enough to understand your job. You've got to understand your industry. So I was like, okay, how do I not get into a position where the hard work I've put in is in the hands of somebody else? I need to go learn how to make a movie. So that's what I did. I quit acting. I didn't take another role. People say to me, they're offering me roles. Like, nope, 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 nope. I went around to different production companies and different companies, and I said, you don't have to pay me. I just want to know how you do this thing. I volunteered in the camera department, wardrobe department. I was so grateful for all those people who took me on. Is I learned how to make a movie. I understood the business. They showed me how to do budgets. I understood the budget in each department. I understood the needs of each department. I understood the process, the machine. Where does the money start? Where does it end? And when does it reach you? That's so important. I realized as an actor, I was the last guy in line. Let's say you can 100 million. 20 rand. Because before there's another person who needs to get money. This person needs to get money. And then now I'm just an employee. I have no say in how it's going to go, where it's going to go. I have zero control over that. Meanwhile, I'm the face of this thing. Everyone thinks it's my movie. Hey, Kalushi. They call me that now. Hey, Kalushi. Hey, Kalushi. What? Hey, you know what I mean? But I don't own that movie. I have no power over it. I have no control over it. It has power over me. The next movie I got, the big movie I got with this thing. It did well. It was like number 2 in the world. It did incredibly well. They asked me, okay, what role do you want? I was like, nah, I don't want a role. I want to produce a movie and you guys are going to help me do it. That's the thing. I was like, I realized from the last time, I was like, nope, not doing this again. You know, and they gave me an opportunity and that took me on my journey as a producer. I'd taken up all this knowledge, all this information. I would go on to start a company called Nguniverse Studios with my business partner, Thabiso. The transition from being an actor to being a storyteller was huge. I remember how stories started. It was us sitting by a campfire. It was an actor, performer, performing a story around a fire to people. Or it'd be like a bunch of actors traveling from one village to another village. And back then, we were the makeup artist. We were the writer. We were the producer. The actor was everything. And he could control everything because he was everything. And the more that we relinquished of that, the more we said, no, someone else must write for me. Someone else must direct for me. You start relinquishing your power because we're too lazy to do the hard work. And the lazier you are, the less you make. So those two things of really don't let what people are saying, and this includes the people you love. It includes the people who love, who tell you like you can't do this, whatever. Look, you've got to be reasonable and you've got to be balanced. You've got to take care of your basics. It's so important to not hustle from desperation, to not make deals from desperation. If you're going to get into a deal you can't say no to, you're not in a deal. You're in a slave contract. You're screwed. Immediately you're screwed.
Calling out all content creators, from artists to podcasters to any creator who uses any form of audio. You can now upload your very own audio clip from a song to a content clip and promote your work using the MTN Callertunez platform. The cherry on top is you can use the Callertunez to make some moolah, cash, pesos by getting your fam, friends, and fans to use your Callertunez, which will mean money in your pocket. So basically, every time someone listens to your Callertunez, likes it, they simply press any key from 1 to 9 to download it as their own, and that is a win for you too. You can submit your audio through AMP's very own distribution channel with MTN by sending it to the very email below. And of course, through Callertunez, you get access to the creative world of AMP Studios with access to our resources from recording studios to podcasting equipment to events, networking sessions, and all of it. Get as creative as you want with MTN Callertunez and AMP Studios.
Now, getting to Nguniverse Studios, which is my legacy. It's the only thing I care about now. I don't care if you haven't seen me in a movie in 5 years. I don't care if you don't see me in an article. That's not going to feed my family. Because this is what you must understand about being a performer or an actor or just a laborer in general. As a laborer, you don't own anything. And this is why ownership is so important. Every time I do a movie, they pay me good money. But that money needs to last me until I get my next movie. So I'm basically a salary worker with an inconsistent salary, right? So already I'm just like, this ain't the way. I never attend awards, and it's nothing to taking away, nothing from the awards. There's a reason why. For an award, I have to spend 10,000 on an outfit or 3,000 on an outfit. I've got to get myself there, get my girl there, get a photographer to come in. I'll go there. That award isn't paying me anything. And even if I get 60 of those awards, the next day I'll be in the line with Jimmy Come to Joburg because they're still going to make me audition. My rate isn't going to go up. Nothing's going to change. Meanwhile, you're tweeting me, you love me, I'm trending, I'm your favorite. It's not feeding my family. It's not doing anything for me. But I'm famous, I'm award-winning, and hungry. What's the actual point? I'm like, I need to own something. And I need to build a company that can stand when I'm dead. It must be able to wash its own face. Getting to Nguniverse Studios. Nguniverse Studios is a business I have with my partner, Thabiso Mabanna. I've known him since primary school. How it came about was as a result of everything I told you, me training, me getting there, but I needed to find the right partner. I did try business before, a production company with my other best friend and my wife. It didn't work out because we were all too similar. We were all artists. Mistake number one. right? I bump into my boy Thabiso at the mall all the time, and he see me, and he's in corporate financing. He understands corporate finance. That's what he does. But he used to act when we did plays in primary school. He was acting. It's like, hey, Mfana, come on, get any movie, Joe. I'm like, you want to be in movies? He's like, yeah, man, anything. What can I do? I'm like, I don't know. What do you do? I'm like, I'm in corporate financing. I work for these companies. They look for investment opportunities. I'm like, what? What? Yeah. Yeah. No. They give money to projects. Like, whoa, come here. What? Money? Okay. Oh, you're a producer. He's like, what's that? Let me show you. All that time that I was going to these different companies, learning those skill sets, I'd compiled into like a sort of ideology of how to make a movie. And I could just transport that into him. It took a year to like really explain to him, this is what it is, explain the industry, what it works. And he applied a fresh perspective. He's like, oh, I see what the issues are. You guys don't have structure. Your corporate, your business plans aren't right. You're not showing how people are going to make returns. So how do you make your profit? We're so concerned, even as an actor, about how well the movie does, like in terms of how many people see it. We don't think about how much money it's going to make. And to be honest with you, that's the only thing that's important. Because even if they make this movie that you love and it costs like 100 million and all of you like praise it and it wins awards, but it only made 20 million, let me tell you something. They're not going to make another sequel. You guys love it. It hasn't made money. And I realized for this to work, the industry needs to be an industry. The products I need to be in need to make money. That's more powerful than any award. If I'm in a project and as long as I'm attached to it, it makes money, I'm valuable. I'm not just valuable to you guys, I'm valuable to the people who have to take the money out. And what's great is now I'm not sourcing funding from filmmakers. I source money from private sector. I'm like, here's this money, this movie I made for 500,000, but I sold it for 5 million. They're like, I don't care about your movies. Here's 500,000. Make 5 million. You know what I mean? And that's it. That's all that matters. To make a sustainable industry. Back to Thabiso. So I said to him, hey, I've got this story called Imbokodo. It's kind of like similar to this thing. He's like, let me see it. He reads it. It's like, bro, this thing is amazing. I'm like, yeah, I want to do this story. But I also want it to be only African actors, African born and raised actors. It's like, okay. So what's the problem with that? Oh, no, they won't let me do that. I was like, why? No, because it's expensive and usually they want a big Hollywood movie star to be in the project, and they don't want us. They never cast us. I mean, we barely played Mandela. We've never played Steve Biko. We never played, you know what I mean? So I'm like, they're not going to let us do this with the money, you know? He's like, oh, okay. But I do have an idea, I tell him. I'm like, I have a rule for this. I only want born and raised Africans in this movie. But there is a way I can do that. And there is a movie star I can attach to it that can do this. He's like, who's that? I want Charlize Theron. But I don't know how to get it. It's like, oh, why don't we just get Charlize Theron? It's like, bro, I don't know Charlize Theron, bro. Like, how am I going to get Charlize Theron? It's like, let's get her. And he's like, I've seen you this whole time. You told me your plan. Every time you said you want to go do something, you just go do it. And you've done it. So, and everything you told me sounded crazy when you told me anyway, and you did it. So what's so crazy about this? And I was like, what is so crazy about this? Actually, let's get Charlize Theron. Anyway, I take that project. We pitch it around and we raised 200 million without Charlize because the story was good. I'll tell you what Imbokodo is a little bit about. So I'm obsessed with Africa. I'm obsessed with I'm not South Africa. This is a very important distinction. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm so anti-xenophobia because I think we don't understand what it actually means. I was raised by incredible women. In the Klaba family, I think my mom's got like 6 or 7 sisters. So I was raised around a lot of women. My grandmother was the matriarch. She was the leader in the community there. So I saw my mom and these 7 women. And when we got in trouble, they would roll up their skirts, you know what I mean? So I had never had the perspective of a woman not being a warrior. Like I've only seen warrior women who could do everything. Anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm doing the story about Bokang, who's inspired me, the story. And then I'm like, I can base these other women on my aunt, my mother, my grandmother. So then I'm like, I want to just do the story about African warrior women. So I Google African warrior queens. There was thousands and thousands of warrior women. Mantatisi from Bahlokwa, Mujaji from the Balubedu, Nandi Wagapepe, Amina from the House of People of Nigeria. I was like, what? We have so many warrior women. And you read their stories, they were in the front lines fighting, and it wasn't weird. They're like, oh, and then I was like, how many kingdoms were ruled by women? A lot. It's not weird. Like, we're not a patriarchal society. Nothing about Africa, if you look at its historical evidence, says we're patriarchal. So I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. And I just dived in. And then I set it. So I said, like, you know what? Because I'm realizing people don't know these warrior women, instead of naming these people after my mother and stuff like that, I'll do that one day. Let me use these actual warrior women so that when they watch the show, they will research who Mantatisi is and learn about themselves. And we will learn about ourselves. And so that's what I did. I wrote this story about these 7 warrior women who go fish these girls who've been missing and taken. And it's set in a different Africa. It's Africa where all the African heroes, Mutapa, Mansa Musa, everyone lives in the same world. And this world is called Ndawo. So I showed him the story and he couldn't understand. I'd done so much research. Each character was defined. Everybody knew. I knew their stories. I knew where they were. How we raised the 200 million is I started attaching people. Hey, the cinematographer from Kalushi, he'd ended up shooting Straight Outta Compton. He worked on that. So I was like, okay, can I attach you on? He's like, yeah, sure. Then I met this other guy and his wife. Me and Bogang met this other guy and his wife called Pierre. Pierre and India. Pierre in India, it was a French guy and some American lady. They were celebrating their divorce. So they were getting divorced, so they're doing a world tour to celebrate their divorce together. Yeah. I find out later on, Pierre owns a company called Buff. Buff did visual effects for Spider-Man, Harry Potter, all these things. So I'm like, hey, India, Pierre, can I show you something? And then they're like, sure. And I said, like, okay, we're on board. Now I've got a huge VFX company who's willing to come on board. I've got a top cinematographer, and I start going to Michelle Mosolagai. I knew I wanted Mujaji to be a woman with albinism. I'll tell you why. I was like, Michelle Mosolagai. Then I'm like, Pro Tusi as Nandi. I'm like, Bokang as Mantatisi. So I'm starting to cast. Okay, I called Tuso. Hey, Tuso, do you want to play Nzinga? She's like, yeah, let's go. I literally add the cast. I add the crew and everybody like that. I have a project. And then I go to like finances guys and we raise finance. They're like, yeah, this is super cool. Then I'm like, I still want that Charlize plug though. For real, you know? Because I know this, and we raised 200 million, but everywhere I go, everyone makes me realize 200 million isn't enough for what you want to do. It's actually peanuts. It's not going to do anything. And I thought to myself, if I want to tell these women's story properly and honor them properly, I'm going to do it properly. Anyway, so I'm working on developing the story with a woman called Amanda Lane. As I speak to her, I'm like, you know, I wish I could attach Charlize. She's like, you want to attach Charlize? Why? It's like, if I get Charlize, she's South African, she's a big enough star that they'll let me cast these people that everyone think are nobodies. Not to say Tusos are nobody, so funny, and Pearls are nobody. But at the time, you know, I believe in these actors. She's like, oh, I know someone who knows Charlize. Oh, what's that show? So I'm like, okay, cool. So she introduces me to her manager, Megan, a beautiful woman. We pitched the story to Megan. Megan's like, this is an amazing story. I don't know Charlize. My close friend knows Charlize. I'm like, what? Her name is Aletta. Okay, let's go. She lives down my road, this Aletta lady. I'm like, I'm like, just go. Don't mention Charlize. Just go to her, picture the story. She doesn't like it when people use it for Charlize. I go to Aletta Alberts with Thabiso. We pitch the thing to her. She's like, it's a great idea. Fantastic. We don't bring up Charlize. We're not supposed to bring up Charlize. No. It's a great story, brilliant story. You're like, yeah. You know, we're just dreaming of this dream cast, you know, whatever. I just throw it like, maybe for this role we can get this person, maybe this role, like, I don't know. I wish we could get like, maybe, you know, like this animation and a random actress, or maybe a Charlize Theron or this. It's like, she keeps quiet and she sees me. Smart lady. And then she's like, okay, let me take this project. I think it's beautiful. You guys pitched it well. I'm going to shop it around to my friends outside and see what we can do. I'm like, oh, we've got the 200 million. She's like, throw that away. That's nothing. She tells her, like, forget that 200 million. That's not what you want. What you just told me you want to do? Throw it away. Now, this is important. I haven't told you how I pitched the idea, though. And that's what's important. I didn't pitch a movie or a television show. I pitched a 20-year plan. The way I'd written the show is that at the end, which I'm going to give away the show now, as they're about to kill the bad guy, she sends them off to different worlds. So now this warrior woman, and then it will have her own movie and her own series. This warrior woman will have her own movie. This one will have their own movie and series. And then we'll follow them as they try to come back together to come stop this moment. Right? I got it from like Samurai Jack. And then I want to do video games, comic books. I want to do this. This is a 20-year plan. We want to create a whole cinematic Nguniverse. All right? And I think this is how we'll be able to monetize. And then eventually we want to do rides and whatever. She just looked at me. And that's how we raised the 200 million. I never pitched this one thing. I pitched an entire industry from this thing. And that's important. She loved this idea that we're going to do animation, live story. She loved that. She's like, okay, boys, I know who to pitch this to. Aletta Alberts, I'll tell you who she is now, arranges a meeting with the head of NBC in America, a meeting with the head of freaking Universal, you name it. We were meeting head of Netflix, head of this, head of that. I'm talking about the heads. While that's happened, Aletta says, I sent it to Charlize. Huh? Yeah, she hasn't read it yet. I'll let you know when she does. Like, and me and Thabiso, like, months go past, we're still hustling. And Charlize says, let them pitch. She hits up Aletta like, let them pitch. Before I get into the pitch, this is who Aletta Alberts is. Aletta Alberts used to work for SABC2 as their content acquisition person. She used to broker deals around the world. That's why she knows all these people, right? She went to go negotiate with this other company. I think she was getting, I don't know if it was All You Need Is Love or Friends Like These. She was getting that. And this company who owned the rights to those shows had other IPs. But this is the genius of this woman. She's like, okay, I'll pay for these two things here, right? Cool, because they were charging her. She's like, it's a lot, but it's okay. But can you give me these other two things for free? The other two things that she took and brought to this country were Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z. You know? We only have them because of that lady thinking that's smart in that moment, and she got them for free. So if anyone could understand what we were trying to do, it was that lady. So we pitched to Miss Charlize. My business partner is Thabiso. He's from corporate. He's like a robot. Aletta said, ask her to be a producer, don't ask her to act. I was like, okay. But then I was like, but also if you want to, you can, you know. So Charlize asked a question. She's like, I don't really want to play that role that you want me to play. The role I wanted to play is based on a woman called Elizabeth Bathery. If you Google the words most famous female serial killer, the name Elizabeth Bathery will come there. Fortunately, I had an affinity for serial killers and history, so that worked out well for me. So I knew a lot about her. I was like, I'd like you to play. She's like, I've already played that character. I'm like, what? She's like, no, in Snow White and the Huntsman. I'm like, oh, and I hadn't seen it at the time. I was like, oh, okay, I understand why you wouldn't want to play that again. Makes sense. So Elizabeth Bathery was a Hungarian duchess. She was sent to death because she'd killed 2,000 girls, bathed in their blood to remain young. She was the villain in my story. In Imbokodo, she was the villain. So I thought that all makes sense. So she's like, yeah, man, I don't want to play that role again. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I completely understand. I think ours might be a little bit different from yours. She's like, why? She's like, well, you know, Elizabeth Bathery didn't do that. And she does this. She's like, yes, carry on. No, Elizabeth Bathery was a woman with extreme wealth and Hungary. And she controlled the economy there. And all the men there got tired of it. So they started a rumor about her that she was a witch, was killing 2,000 girls to bathe in their blood. And they killed her and took her wealth and took over Hungary. I said this to Charlize. And she literally said, boys, now I'm impressed. That's what I told them on Snow White and the Huntsman. Like, this is a lie about this woman. Can't be different, a different angle. It's like, you're the first people I've ever seen who know that fact. And then the question I didn't want her to ask, she asked like, how's this different from Black Panther? I'm like, because these are real people. She's like, yes. Because unlike Black Panther, when they Google the names of these people, young black girls, white girls, people around the world will know these women were real. Like Elizabeth Bathery, they'll know their real story. She's like, and that's why I'm going to do it. And we've been on that journey since. She did one last thing, which I'll finish off this story about because it encapsulates it. So she's like, drop the 200 million and drop everyone you've attached to this movie. And then she's like, okay, and we're not doing a TV show anymore. Now, this is after I've dropped everybody now. Sister, cool, cool. We just dropped, she's like, no, you're going to start with a comic book. Like, no, no, we're going to start with it. So we go. I've never written a comic book in my life. I know nothing. And then she introduces us to like the biggest comic book houses in the world. We met all of them. At the end, we go with this one company. Why them? They let us keep our IP. They take a portion of it. She takes a portion of it. We take most of it. And they're not going to pay us a lot of money. They're going to pay us next to nothing to do this thing. I can tell you, it's $10,000. But we're keeping the back end, the points. So they've left us with that. So we're like, okay, cool. We do this comic book, whatever. We signed the deal. We signed a deal with Dark Horse Comics. Charlize, the deal is two-pronged. It's a comic book deal, and then it's a film, television, all these other amazing things. They have to do it within this amount of years. Otherwise, all the rights go back to us. When we signed the deal, Charlize calls us. She's like, okay, now, boys, now you can do a TV show. She's like, because now you own it. And this was an important lesson. We were so angry at her for forcing us to start with the comic book. And she taught me the most important thing. The most profitable words in IP are based on. We had a comic book. So any TV show or movie that was going to be made, any game was going to be based on the comic book. Who owns the rights to that comic book? We do. So what happens, what you guys don't know, is if I come and go pitch a show to one of the streamers or the things, they take the whole thing. They take the IP and own it. That means if they do number 2, they can kick me out and get somebody else to do it. But if it was based on my book, they can never do that. It's based on. Those words are the difference between a couple 100,000 and billions. And I was like, damn. My whole journey has just been about that sentence. It's not enough to understand your job. You've got to understand your industry. But it's not enough to just understand yourself as a person. Understand the world you live in. You know, the people you're with. A little bit of kindness goes a long way. Don't look down on people. Collaborate. And don't make excuses that you don't have money. You look like this. You know, I didn't have money. I didn't look right. I didn't have these things. I was living in the back room. I don't want to hear it. Just because you hear me twanging doesn't mean I come from a wealthy family. You know? So every time someone tells you that, the people I never work with, I'm never going to work with that person. Never going to work with that. Because they don't take accountability for themselves. Because if you're so weak that other people have domain over your destiny, I can't mess with you, bro. We're not on the same wavelength. Control your journey. Control your destiny. Don't let people who overlook you define that for you. Understand your world. Understand your industry. Understand who you are. My name is Thabo Rametsi. Thank you very much. Sebenza, 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 sebenza lazima.